Hi, everyone. I'm WFAA Chief Meteorologist Pete Delkus. I want to give you an update on Dorian, and I want to dive into the details of Dorian more than I have time for during our regular newscast. Get about 4.5 minutes for that. I want to get into this just fairly in depth as to where it is, where it's going to go, the differences in the models, the timing, the intensity, and a lot of those details. Right now, Dorian at this point, not that well defined. I do expect it to become well defined and an eye to start to form over the next 12 to 24 hours or so. At this point, it's about 800 miles off the coast of Florida. It's here's the Turks and Caicos, so it's just off to the east of there. And currently, the official position has it 330 miles east of the southeastern Bahamas. It has winds right now, it's still Category 1, winds of 85 miles an hour. The forward speed northwest at 13 miles an hour. That's pretty good. We want these tropical systems to move along at a fairly rapid pace. We don't want them to slow down. That just gives them more time for intensification. But even with that said, in that 13-mile-an-hour forward speed, we're still going to see some fairly intense or some rapid intensification. The majority of the models do take it into coastal Florida, southeast Florida, parts of central Florida as we head through Labor Day on Monday, September 2nd. A couple of the models take it out into the Gulf of Mexico and then a second landfall up in the panhandle of Florida. The majority of them, though, as you can see, do keep it, really right across the peninsula, and they just run it right up the peninsula from the central portion up to North Florida and then up into southeast Georgia or southern Georgia at a minimum. But that's what the majority of the models are looking like right now. I think this is always interesting. The European model, year in and year out, is certainly one of the best models, not only in tropical meteorology, but in all of meteorology. So all of us look at the European model, every time it comes in. But yesterday's forecast had it moving through the central Bahamas, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, then out maybe around Naples, and then out into the Gulf of Mexico, and then made a second landfall up in the panhandle of Florida. That was yesterday's model. So you compare that with today's model. Today's model, a similar track to Nassau, but it doesn't take it across South Florida. It takes it in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale area, maybe a bit north of there, maybe up around West Palm, maybe up around Jupiter, and then it kind of hugs the east coast of Florida before it moves a bit farther to the north. So that's the comparison with the European from yesterday to today. Of course, it will continue to evolve and continue to be adjusted over the coming days. And right now, landfall from this point when I'm recording this is about 90 hours away, at least official landfall. The position of it, once again, is about 800 miles off the coast of Florida. And now I want to compare the American model to the European model, just so you can see the differences. And there are many, many differences. A lot of similarities, though, through 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. They're both positioned here at 9 a.m. on Saturday, but they start to break apart and separate Sunday afternoon. American model, more of a northern track. The European model, more of a southern track. Look at Monday at 11 a.m. The European model is around Nassau. The American model is just off the coast of the United States. The American model by Monday night is making landfall around West Palm Beach. The European model is still around Nassau at 10 o'clock on Monday night. So some fairly significant difference here. Now, as we move forward in time, the European model makes landfall around late Tuesday night, early on Wednesday morning. At that point, the American model is up around Tampa, somewhere up in central Florida, and then they both slowly move to the north after that. But some fairly significant differences with the American model and the European model. The European model by Friday night has it between just to the north of Jacksonville. The American model has it just off the coast of South and North Carolina. The official forecast track by Friday afternoon has it at a Category 3, a major hurricane, winds of 115 miles an hour. Saturday afternoon, it strengthens even more, winds of 120 miles an hour. Saturday, this is Saturday at 1 p.m. We have winds of 125 miles an hour. And then on Sunday afternoon, now it's a Category 4, winds of 130 miles an hour. Now it's running through the northern Bahamas. And landfall will be Monday afternoon, somewhere around Fort Pierce, maybe Vero Beach, just to the south of Melbourne, winds of 130 miles an hour. That's a landfall of Monday afternoon. By Tuesday afternoon, it's just south of Orlando. I mean, it only moves 50, maybe 60 miles over a 24-hour time frame. And during that 24-hour time frame is when we're looking at very, very heavy rain. Some of the models are forecasting a couple of feet of rain, 1 to 2 feet of rain. Of course, we're looking at a storm surge that could be 9 to 10, maybe 12 to 15 feet for coastal areas. We're looking at a lot of flooding, not only coastal flooding, but inland flooding as well. There's the forecast, and this too will change and have to be adjusted as we move through the next 24 to 48. Certainly, again, about 90 hours away from landfall with this system. But the one thing that I do want you to keep in mind is more than 80% of tropical storm related fatalities, they're caused by inland flooding, storm surge, and or high surf. So the water is a problem. I mean, we all focus in on the winds of 120, 130 plus. But remember, the water is the problem, the inland flooding, the storm surge, and or the high surf. So please keep an eye on this system. I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into this to give you a few more details. If you have any friends, any loved ones, any family in the state of Florida right now, I mean, really anywhere from Central Florida to the south, or really anywhere across the state of Florida at all, they will indeed have some big problems as we head through this entire upcoming holiday Labor Day weekend. So keep it here for the latest, and we'll continue to keep you updated.
President Trump owns a pretty decent chunk of property in Florida, and Dorian could make landfall right around, as you just saw, his Mar-a-Lago estate. The president has canceled a planned overseas trip to track the storm, but he is still taking considerable grief, political sniping even before the storm lands. Chief White House correspondent John Roberts has that part of the story tonight.
As Dorian continues its relentless march toward the Florida coast, President Trump tweeting that the federal government is fully prepared for what lies ahead.
We're ready. We have the best people in the world ready, and they're going to help you. We're shipping food, we're shipping water, but it may be that you're going to evacuate. We're going to see what happens. We're waiting. It does seem almost certain that it's hitting dead center.
The president's critics comparing his concern for Florida with what they say was his lack of it when the storm was taking direct aim at Puerto Rico.
Well, part of it's that Florida could be a swing state in 2020. And part of it is Florida is not an island full of people of color.
3 days ago, President Trump appeared annoyed that Dorian was eyeballing Puerto Rico, tweeting, "Wow, yet another big storm heading to Puerto Rico. Will it ever end?" Following that up with, Puerto Rico was one of the most corrupt places on earth. At the same time, FEMA was well prepared for a direct hit on the island, having stocked multiple warehouses with relief supplies. But Democrats were focused on what the president said, not what he did.
There's no doubt that the president doesn't view Puerto Rico as part of the United States. He doesn't view people who didn't vote for him as important, and he doesn't view people who aren't white as important as everyone else.
Democrats also criticized the president for giving the green light to diverting funds from one of FEMA's disaster relief accounts to address the crisis on the border. FEMA insists it still has plenty of money to address storms and has already mobilized an aggressive response to Dorian. But Florida's Democratic Agriculture Commissioner, Nikki Fried, was incensed in a statement saying the president must be out of his mind if he thinks it's a good idea to shift funds out of FEMA for immigrant detention at the border while a potential Category 3 hurricane bears down on the United States. Florida is a critical state in President Trump's re-election bid, to be sure. He also owns a lot of property there. But some of the attacks against him appeared way out of bounds. Canada's former Prime Minister, Kim Campbell, who held office for 4 months, tweeting, "I'm rooting for a direct hit on Mar-a-Lago." After she was pummeled online for that tweet, Campbell came back to say, "I have deleted my tweet about the hurricane in Mar-a-Lago and sincerely apologized to all it offended. It was intended as sarcasm, not a serious wish of harm." President Trump will be spending tonight, tomorrow, and tomorrow evening at Camp David. He will be back on Sunday for meetings with his national security and FEMA team about the hurricane. With this Category 3 storm bearing down on Florida, the president really had no choice but to cancel his visit to Poland. He just said on the South Lawn that he will schedule that for a later date, may pair it together with a visit to Germany. The president also talks about the hurricane, James Comey, China, Iran, and a whole lot more, Brett. So
Stay tuned.
An impromptu Marine One press conference. We'll air that
And I'm
shortly.
missing it.
I know. Sorry, John. Thank you.